The Christmas party was in full swing when my wife decided to destroy our marriage. Not that she announced it with fanfare or anything dramatic like that. Vanessa Clark, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, naturally, simply leaned over during the corporate toast and whispered in my ear with the same tone she might use to order coffee. "You can leave now, Ethan. I want to make new connections among the executives tonight." I stood there in my rented tuxedo, watching her glide away toward Richard Foster, her boss and the CEO of Meridian Tech. The ballroom was all glass walls and city lights, 40 floors above the streets of downtown. Everyone looked like they belonged there except me, the IT consultant who fixed their servers and pretended not to notice when they talked around me like I was furniture. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something sharp and cold settled in my chest as I watched Vanessa laugh at Richard's jokes, her hand lingering on his arm just a moment too long. She wore the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she said made her feel powerful. I should have left. Should have taken the elevator down and driven home to our condo like the good, obedient husband. Instead, I did something that would change everything. Vanessa's purse sat unattended on our table, her phone sticking out of the side pocket. She never locked it around me. Why would she? I was just Ethan, the guy who paid half the mortgage and asked no questions about her late nights at the office. My hands moved before my brain caught up. Phone in my jacket, USB drive from her work folder tucked beside it. She was too busy charming the board members to notice, too confident in her perfect little world to imagine her husband might finally grow a spine. The elevator ride down felt like falling through space. In the parking garage, I sat in my car and opened her phone. No password, no security. She trusted me that much, at least. The messages loaded slowly, and with each one, that cold feeling in my chest spread outward like frost on glass. Text after text to someone named Trent. Photos I recognized from our bedroom, but they weren't meant for me. Email chains about deals that skirted the edge of legality, bribes disguised as consulting fees, promises of contracts in exchange for favors I didn't want to think about. But the worst part was the messages about me. How I was useful for now, but not ambitious enough for the long term. How she was working on an exit strategy that would leave her with the condo and most of our shared assets. How I was too trusting to see what's right in front of him. I sat there for 20 minutes, uploading everything to my personal cloud storage. Then I did something that felt like jumping off a cliff. I forwarded the entire chain to the company's executive group chat. All of it. Every dirty deal, every compromising photo, every backstabbing message. The timestamp read 11:58 p.m. on December 23rd. Merry Christmas, darling. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I drove home through empty streets, my phone buzzing with notifications I ignored. Our condo felt different when I walked in, like I was seeing it for the first time. The expensive furniture Vanessa had picked out, the art that cost more than most people's cars, the view of the city that she said made her feel like she was on top of the world. I poured myself 3 fingers of the whiskey she bought for impressing clients and waited. She came home at 2 a.m., heels clicking on the hardwood, humming something under her breath. I heard her drop her purse by the door, heard her pause when she noticed the light in the living room. "Ethan? Why are you still up?" I didn't answer. Just sat there sipping whiskey and watching the city lights twinkle below us like fallen stars. "Did you have fun at the party?" I asked when she appeared in the doorway. She looked perfect, as always. Not a hair out of place, lipstick still intact, that confident smile she wore like armor. It was productive. I made some excellent connections. "I bet you did." Something in my tone made her pause. She tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. "Are you feeling all right? You seem different." "Just tired," I said. "Long day, long marriage." She laughed, but it sounded forced. Don't be dramatic. You know I hate it when you get moody. I finished my whiskey and stood up. You should check your phone, Vanessa. I think you might have some messages. The first hint of uncertainty flickered across her face. She pulled out her phone, and I watched her expression change as she scrolled through the notifications. Confusion first, then alarm, then something approaching panic. What did you do? Her voice was barely a whisper. I shared your Christmas spirit with the office. Seemed like the generous thing to do. She stared at the screen, her face going pale under the expensive makeup. Ethan, this is everything. My entire career. Your entire career built on lies and backstabbing? Yeah, I figured that out. She looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. You don't understand. These people, they'll destroy me. Richard will have to fire me. The board will what? Hold you accountable? What a novel concept. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Ethan Cole? The voice was smooth, professional. Richard Foster. Speaking. We need to talk. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Early. I looked at Vanessa, who was still staring at her phone like it might explode. I'll be there. Good. And Ethan? Bring everything you have. The line went quiet. Vanessa was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. But I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. Just that cold satisfaction spreading through my chest like winter air. Why? She whispered. Why would you ruin everything we built? I walked past her toward the bedroom, pausing in the doorway. We didn't build anything, Vanessa. You built a house of cards, and I just opened a window. I woke up on the couch to the sound of Vanessa screaming into her phone. She was in the kitchen, pacing like a caged animal, her voice shrill with panic. No, you don't understand. Someone hacked my accounts. This wasn't me. I would never... She saw me watching and lowered her voice, but I could still hear every word. The walls in our condo were thin, designed for style rather than privacy. Richard, please, give me 24 hours to fix this. I can make it go away. I stretched and checked my own phone. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 1 email from my nephew Jace with the subject line, Uncle E, you're trending. Jace was 22, fresh out of college with a computer science degree and a talent for digital mischief that reminded me of myself at that age. His email contained a single link to a private forum where Meridian Tech employees gossiped about company drama. The thread was titled, Executive Meltdown, Clark Files Leaked, and had over 300 replies. I scrolled through them, drinking my coffee and listening to Vanessa's increasingly desperate phone calls. Most of the comments were predictable office politics. People who'd always suspected Vanessa of sleeping her way up the corporate ladder now had confirmation. But buried in the thread were details I hadn't expected. Apparently, Trent Mallory wasn't just her lover. He was her partner in a scheme to oust Richard Foster and position themselves for a hostile takeover of the company. That was news to me. I'd thought I was just exposing an affair and some shady business practices. Turns out, I'd stumbled into something much bigger. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Impressive work last night. We should meet. M. Before I could respond, Vanessa stormed into the living room. She'd changed into her power suit, navy blue, sharp shoulders, the armor she wore when she needed to intimidate someone. Unfortunately for her, I was immune to her corporate theater. I know what you're doing, she said, standing over me with her arms crossed. This is about the promotion, isn't it? You're jealous because I'm successful and you're still fixing computers for a living. I looked up at her over my coffee mug. Actually, I consult on network security. There's a difference. Don't be cute. This ends now. You're going to call Richard and tell him your accounts were compromised. You're going to say someone used your credentials to access my files. No. The word hung in the air between us like a challenge. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. I don't think anyone had ever told her no before. Not directly, not without softening it with apologies or explanations. "What did you say?" "I said no. I'm not covering for you anymore, Vanessa. I'm not pretending your late nights are about work. I'm not ignoring the way you talk about me to your friends. And I'm definitely not helping you lie your way out of this." She sat down hard on the coffee table, her composure cracking. "You don't understand what you've done. These people aren't just going to fire me. They're going to make sure I never work in this industry again. They'll destroy me." "Good." The word came out colder than I'd intended, but I didn't take it back. Vanessa stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm your husband, remember? The guy who's been paying attention while you thought I was too stupid to notice." My phone rang again. This time it was Oscar, my old friend from the garage where I'd worked before getting into IT. Oscar had stayed in the automotive world, running his own shop on the south side of town. We'd kept in touch over the years, mostly through occasional beers and complaints about our respective women troubles. "Ethan, buddy, you need to get down here. Now." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. But you need to see this in person." I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Vanessa called after me, but I didn't look back. Oscar's garage sat wedged between a pawn shop and a Chinese restaurant, the kind of neighborhood where people minded their own business and paid in cash. I found him under the hood of a vintage Mustang, grease up to his elbows, and a grin on his weathered face. "You magnificent bastard," he said without looking up. "I always knew you had it in you." "Had what in me?" "The stones to fight back. Marissa showed me the forums this morning. Your wife's getting roasted like a Christmas turkey." I blinked. "Marissa?" Oscar wiped his hands on a rag and pointed toward the office. Through the grimy window, I could see a woman with short blonde hair typing furiously on a laptop. "Marissa Chen? No, wait, Marissa Walsh." I had to be careful with names. She was one of Vanessa's corporate friends, the kind who smiled to your face at dinner parties and then spent the evening dissecting your marriage for entertainment. "She showed up an hour ago," Oscar explained. "Said she had information you might find useful." I walked into the office, and Marissa looked up with a smile that could cut glass. "Hello, Ethan. I was wondering when you'd finally grow a backbone." "What do you want, Marissa?" "To help you finish what you started." She turned the laptop around so I could see the screen. It was a private message thread between Vanessa and several other executives, dated from 6 months ago. "She was planning to leave you anyway," Marissa said. "The whole thing about waiting for the right time? That was code for waiting until she could take everything in the divorce, the condo, the investments, even your consulting business." I read the messages, feeling that cold sensation spread through my chest again. Vanessa had been methodical about it, consulting lawyers, moving money, building a case that would portray me as an unstable spouse who couldn't handle her success. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Marissa's smile turned predatory. "Because she cut me out of a deal last month, cost me a promotion and about $50,000 in commissions. I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor." "And now?" "Now I'm going to help you burn her entire world down." She pulled out a flash drive and set it on the desk between us. "Everything's on there. Financial records, email chains, even some photos from the company retreat last summer that would make interesting viewing at the next board meeting." I picked up the drive, feeling its weight. Such a small thing to hold so much potential destruction. "There's more," Marissa continued. "Trent's been bragging about their takeover plan to anyone who'll listen. He thinks he's untouchable because his father sits on the board of directors, but Daddy doesn't know about the embezzlement." "Embezzlement?" "Client funds, redirected through shell companies. Trent's been skimming for months, and Vanessa's been covering for him. They planned to blame it on Richard when they made their move." Oscar whistled low from the doorway. Sounds like your wife picked the wrong team, buddy. I looked at the flash drive again, then at Marissa's expectant face. She was offering me nuclear weapons in a knife fight. The question was whether I was ready to use them. What do you get out of this? I asked. Satisfaction, and maybe a chance to pick up some of Vanessa's clients when the dust settles. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Parking garage on 5th Street, level B3, 1 hour. Come alone. I showed the message to Oscar, who frowned. Could be a trap. Could be, I agreed. But I'm curious. Marissa stood up and smoothed down her skirt. Whatever you decide fast. Vanessa's not going to take this lying down. She's already called in favors, hired a crisis management firm, probably got lawyers working on damage control. Let her try, I said, pocketing the flash drive. I'm just getting started. The parking garage on 5th Street was the kind of place where people conducted business they didn't want recorded. Concrete walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and enough ambient noise from the street above to mask conversations. I found level B3 and waited. She appeared from behind a pillar like something out of a spy movie. Tall, lean, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, and when she smiled, I recognized her immediately. Hello, Ethan. It's been a while. Rena Santos, my ex-girlfriend from college, the one who'd become a private investigator while I was learning to code. We'd kept in loose touch over the years, the kind of friendly distance that comes when you both know the relationship wasn't meant to last, but respect each other enough to stay civil. You're M, I said. Guilty. I've been following the Meridian Tech situation for a client. Imagine my surprise when I saw your name in the files. What client? She leaned against a concrete pillar, studying me with those sharp brown eyes that never missed details. Someone who has a vested interest in seeing Richard Foster's company cleaned up. The corruption goes deeper than your wife's little schemes, Ethan. She's small fish in a very big pond. Then why are you here? Because sometimes small fish can bring down the whole ecosystem if they're handled correctly. She pulled out a tablet and swiped through several documents. Your wife and Trent have been busy. The embezzlement Marissa mentioned? That's just the tip of the iceberg. She showed me bank records, transfer receipts, and email chains that painted a picture of systematic fraud stretching back 2 years. Vanessa hadn't just been cheating on me, she'd been cheating everyone. The beautiful part, Rena continued, is that they documented everything, emails, texts, even recorded phone calls. They thought they were being careful, but they were actually building a perfect case against themselves. What do you need from me? Access. You're still married to her, still have legitimate reasons to be around the company. I need someone on the inside who can place monitoring devices, copy files, maybe even record some conversations. I thought about Vanessa's panic that morning, her desperate phone calls and threats. Part of me, the part that had loved her once, felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered the messages about my exit strategy and the photos she'd sent to Trent in our bedroom. What's the end game? I asked. Complete exposure, not just to the board of directors, but to federal investigators. Financial crimes, securities fraud, maybe even RICO charges if we can prove conspiracy. That could mean prison time. Rena's smile was sharp as broken glass. That's the idea. She handed me a small device that looked like a USB charging cable. Plug this into any computer on their network. It'll give us backdoor access to their entire system. And if I get caught? You won't. You're the IT guy, remember? You have legitimate reasons to access their computers. I took the device, feeling like I was crossing another line I couldn't uncross. How do I contact you? You don't. I'll contact you. She started to walk away, then paused. Ethan, be careful. When people like Vanessa and Trent realize they're cornered, they get dangerous. I drove back to the condo, my mind racing with possibilities. The device felt heavy in my pocket, like it was radiating heat through the fabric. By the time I reached home, I'd made my decision. Vanessa was in the study, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. She looked up when I entered, her eyes red from crying or lack of sleep. Probably both. "Where were you?" she demanded. "Out, thinking." "About what?" I sat down across from her, noting the way she tensed like she expected an attack. "About us. About what comes next." Hope flickered across her face. "You mean you'll help me fix this?" "I mean, I'll help you pack." The hope died instantly. "What?" "I want you out of the condo, tonight." She stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. "You can't throw me out. This is my home too." "Actually, I can. The lease is in my name, remember? You were too busy building your career to worry about domestic details." "I'll call my lawyer." "Go ahead. But you might want to call a criminal defense attorney instead. I hear you're going to need one soon." Her face went white. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a news article that Jace had sent me. The headline read, "Meridian Tech under investigation for financial irregularities." "The SEC opened an investigation this morning," I explained. "Apparently, someone sent them a very detailed complaint about suspicious transactions and possible securities fraud." Vanessa sank into another chair, the fight going out of her like air from a punctured tire. "You did this?" "I got the ball rolling, but you and Trent built the snowball yourselves." "Trent?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Oh, did I forget to mention? He's been arrested. Something about embezzling client funds. The FBI raided his apartment this afternoon." That was a lie, but a convincing one. I watched her face crumble as she realized her co-conspirator was gone. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing. That's the point, Vanessa. For the first time in our marriage, I want absolutely nothing from you." She started crying then, not the elegant tears she used to manipulate people, but ugly, desperate sobs that shook her whole body. I felt nothing. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd been using me for years. I left her in the study and went to pack a bag. I'd stay at Oscar's place for a few days while she moved out. Give her time to find somewhere else to go. Maybe a nice jail cell if Rena's plan worked out. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news. Impressive work. But we're not done yet. T. Trent." So he hadn't been arrested after all. That meant he was still out there, still dangerous, and probably planning some kind of retaliation. I looked back toward the study, where Vanessa was still crying, and felt that cold satisfaction spread through my chest again. She'd wanted to make new connections, to climb higher in her corporate world. Now she was about to discover what it felt like to fall. I spent 3 days at Oscar's place, sleeping on his couch and helping him with engine repairs, while Vanessa moved her things out of the condo. She left the key on the kitchen counter, along with a note that simply said, "This isn't over." She was right about that. Jace had been monitoring the online chatter about Meridian Tech, and the story was growing legs. Financial blogs were picking up the investigation, industry publications were running exposés about corporate culture, and someone had leaked the original email dump to an investigative journalist who specialized in white-collar crime. "Your wife's becoming famous," Jace told me over the phone. "Not the good kind of famous." "Where is she staying?" "Downtown hotel. The Meridian, ironically. Trent's been seen going in and out of her suite." That surprised me. I'd expected him to distance himself from Vanessa once the heat got intense. Instead, it seemed like they were doubling down on their partnership. "They're planning something," I told Oscar over breakfast. "People don't stick together when they're facing federal charges unless they think they can still win." Oscar looked up from his eggs. What could they possibly do at this point? The cat's out of the bag. Damage control, blame shifting. Maybe they think they can pin everything on Richard Foster and walk away clean. My phone rang. Rena's voice was tense when I answered. "We have a problem. Vanessa and Trent are moving money offshore. My client intercepted some communications. They're planning to liquidate everything and disappear." "When?" "Tonight. There's a private jet scheduled to leave for the Cayman Islands at midnight. I felt that familiar cold sensation in my chest. After everything, the exposure, the investigation, the public humiliation, they were just going to run away and start over somewhere else. Not if I can help it, I said. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to get creative. I hung up and turned to Oscar, who was already reaching for his jacket. Road trip? He asked. Something like that. The Meridian Hotel was the kind of place where money bought privacy, and no one asked uncomfortable questions. 40 floors of glass and steel in the heart of the financial district, with a parking garage that connected to the building through underground tunnels. We found Trent's Tesla on level P2, parked in a spot marked Executive Guest. The car was his pride and joy. Custom paint, premium everything, probably worth more than most people made in a year. Shame if something happened to it, Oscar mused, pulling a toolbox from the back of his van. What did you have in mind? Oscar's grin was pure mischief. Nothing permanent, nothing that can't be fixed, but definitely something that'll make a statement. We spent 20 minutes working on the Tesla. Oscar removed 2 of the tires and deflated the others, while I used a marker to write embezzler across the windshield in large block letters. For the finishing touch, we covered the interior with shredded documents, printouts of the leaked emails that I'd brought from home. Think he'll get the message? Oscar asked, admiring our handiwork. If he doesn't, he's dumber than I thought. We were walking back to Oscar's van when I heard footsteps echoing through the garage. Trent appeared around a concrete pillar, talking loudly into his phone. Told you everything's under control. We'll be in Georgetown by tomorrow morning, and the lawyers can handle the rest from there. He stopped when he saw his car, his mouth falling open like a broken hinge. What the? He spun around looking for the culprits, and his eyes locked onto mine. You. Hello, Trent. Going somewhere? His face went through several shades of red before settling on purple. You destroyed my car. I redecorated it. There's a difference. He pulled out his phone, probably to call security or the police, but I held up my hand. Before you do that, you might want to listen to this. I played a recording on my phone, Trent's voice, captured during his conversation with Vanessa earlier that week, discussing how they planned to frame Richard Foster for their crimes. Where did you get that? His voice was barely a whisper. Does it matter? The point is, I have hours of recordings. Phone calls, meetings, even some interesting video from your hotel suite. All of it time-stamped, all of it admissible in court. Trent looked at his ruined car, then back at me. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely scared. What do you want? I want you to call off the midnight flight. I want you to turn yourself into the FBI, and I want you to leave Vanessa out of whatever deal you make. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll make sure these recordings end up on every news channel in the city. Your father might be on the board of directors, but I don't think even he can protect you from a federal investigation and public humiliation. Trent was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but this doesn't end here. Vanessa won't go down without a fight. I'm counting on it. He walked away, leaving his Tesla behind like a monument to his downfall. Oscar and I drove back to his garage in comfortable silence, both of us savoring the small victory. But Trent was right about one thing. Vanessa wouldn't go quietly. And as I was about to discover, a cornered predator is always most dangerous just before the end. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you're so clever, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. See you soon. V. I showed the message to Oscar, who frowned. Sounds like a threat. Sounds like a promise, I corrected. Which means we need to be ready for whatever she's planning next. The war was far from over. In fact, I suspected the real battle was just beginning. Vanessa's counterattack came at dawn. I woke up on Oscar's couch to the sound of sirens and my phone ringing with an unknown number. When I answered, a professional voice identified himself as Detective Morrison with the Financial Crimes Unit. "Mr. Cole, we need to speak with you about some irregularities in your personal accounts." "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that suggest you've been moving money through offshore accounts. Can you come down to the station this morning?" I sat up, instantly awake. "I think there's been a mistake." "I hope so, sir, but we have documentation that suggests otherwise." After he hung up, I called Rena. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been expecting my call. "She's good," Rena said without preamble. "I'll give her that." "What did she do?" "Created a paper trail that makes you look like the mastermind behind the embezzlement scheme. Bank records, forged signatures, even some fake emails that suggest you were blackmailing her into cooperation." I felt the walls closing in. Can she make it stick? Maybe. She's had months to prepare this contingency plan, but she made one mistake. She's been so focused on framing you that she forgot about the original evidence. What do you mean? The files you leaked on Christmas Eve? Those are still out there, and they're still authentic. More importantly, I've been building my own case file for the past week. Financial records, surveillance photos, recorded conversations, everything we need to prove she's lying. So what's the plan? We accelerate the timeline. Instead of waiting for the federal investigation to play out, we force a confrontation. Tonight. How? By giving her exactly what she wants, a chance to destroy you publicly. Rena's plan was elegant in its simplicity. We would arrange a meeting at Meridian Tech's corporate headquarters, ostensibly so I could turn over additional evidence to clear my name. Vanessa would undoubtedly show up to gloat over my downfall, probably bringing Trent and maybe even some board members to witness my humiliation. What she wouldn't know is that the entire building would be wired for sound and video, courtesy of Rena's surveillance equipment and my access to the company's security system. "She's going to confess?" I asked. "She's going to brag. There's a difference. People like Vanessa can't resist explaining how clever they are, especially when they think they've won." I spent the day at the police station, answering questions and providing documentation that proved my innocence. The detective was professional, but skeptical. Vanessa's fake evidence was convincing, and without Rena's counter-investigation, I might have been in serious trouble. By evening, everything was in place. I sent Vanessa a text message. "You win. Meet me at the office tonight and I'll sign whatever confession you want. 9 p.m., executive conference room." Her response came back immediately. "I knew you'd see reason eventually. Don't try anything stupid." Oscar dropped me off at the Meridian Tech building at 8:30. The lobby was empty except for a security guard who barely looked up from his magazine. I took the elevator to the 40th floor, where the executive offices were located. The conference room was all glass walls and polished mahogany, with a view of the city that made you feel like you owned the world. I'd been in this room dozens of times for IT presentations, always sitting at the far end of the table where the technical staff belonged. Tonight, I sat in Richard Foster's chair at the head of the table and waited. Vanessa arrived at exactly 9 p.m., wearing her Navy power suit and a smile that could freeze water. Trent followed behind her, looking nervous but trying to project confidence. To my surprise, they were accompanied by Marissa and 2 men I didn't recognize, probably lawyers. "Hello, Ethan," Vanessa said, settling into the chair across from me. "Thank you for finally coming to your senses." "I don't have much choice, do I? Your frame job is pretty thorough." "Frame job?" She laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "I prefer to think of it as creative accounting. You were always so good with computers. It only makes sense that you'd use those skills for financial manipulation." "Except I didn't." "Of course you did. The evidence is overwhelming. Bank transfers, forged documents, even testimony from witnesses who saw you acting suspiciously." Trent leaned forward, his confidence returning. "Face it, Cole. You got greedy and got caught. The best thing you can do now is cooperate and maybe avoid serious prison time." I looked around the table at their satisfied faces. They thought they'd won, thought they'd successfully turned the tables and made me the villain of their story. "There's just one problem with your plan," I said. "What's that?" Vanessa asked. "You're confessing to everything on camera." The color drained from her face as I pointed to the small devices Rena had placed around the room, devices that looked like part of the building's standard security equipment, but were actually recording everything in high definition. "You see, while you were busy framing me, I was busy documenting your real crimes. Every conversation, every transaction, every lie you've told over the past week." Trent started to stand, but one of the lawyers grabbed his arm. "Don't move," the man said quietly. "Anything we do now will just make it worse." Vanessa's composure cracked like ice under pressure. "You can't use illegally obtained recordings in court?" "Actually, I can. This is a corporate conference room, and I'm still technically an employee of the company. I have every right to record meetings for security purposes." The door opened and Rena walked in, followed by Detective Morrison and 2 FBI agents. Vanessa's face went completely white as she realized the scope of the trap she'd walked into. "Vanessa Clark," Detective Morrison said, "you're under arrest for embezzlement, securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes." As they read her rights, Vanessa looked directly at me with an expression of pure hatred. "This isn't over," she said, as they led her away in handcuffs. "Yes," I replied, "it is." The aftermath unfolded like dominoes falling in slow motion. Trent was arrested in the lobby as he tried to leave the building. The lawyers disappeared into the elevator, probably already planning their own damage control strategies. Marissa, surprisingly, stayed behind to shake my hand. "Impressive," she said. "I didn't think you had it in you." Neither did I. The next morning, the story broke across every major news outlet. Meridian Tech executives arrested in embezzlement scheme dominated the financial pages, complete with photos of Vanessa and Trent being led away in handcuffs. Richard Foster called me personally to offer his thanks and a permanent consulting contract with the company. "You saved us millions," he said. "Maybe tens of millions. If there's anything I can do for you—" "Just make sure they don't get away with it," I replied. "Oh, they won't. The evidence you provided is airtight. My lawyers say they're looking at 10 to 15 years minimum." I spent the next week cleaning up the mess of my life. The condo felt different without Vanessa's presence. Larger somehow, like I could finally breathe properly. I kept her expensive furniture but replaced the artwork with pieces I actually liked. Oscar helped me move back in, grumbling about rich people's taste in interior design, but clearly proud of what we'd accomplished. "You know," he said as we carried in the last of my boxes, "I always wondered what would happen if you finally got angry. Now I know." "What's that?" "You don't get mad. You get thorough." Rena stopped by that evening with a bottle of champagne and an update on the investigation. The FBI had found evidence of crimes going back 3 years, involving multiple companies and millions of dollars in stolen funds. "Vanessa's lawyer is already talking about a plea deal," she said as we sat on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below. "Reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against the bigger fish." "Will she take it?" "Probably. She's not stupid, just arrogant. Prison is prison, whether it's 10 years or 15. I thought about that for a moment, sipping champagne and feeling oddly empty. The revenge was complete, the justice was served, but I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected. "Any regrets?" Rena asked, reading my expression. "No," I said after a pause, "but I don't feel like celebrating either. That's normal. Revenge is like surgery, necessary sometimes, but it always leaves scars." My phone buzzed with a text from Jace. "Uncle E, check the news. Your wife just made the evening broadcast." I turned on the television and found a reporter standing outside the federal courthouse, explaining how Vanessa Clark had been denied bail due to flight risk. The camera showed her being led into the building, her perfect hair disheveled, her power suit wrinkled from a night in jail. She looked small, ordinary. Nothing like the confident woman who had whispered in my ear at that Christmas party just 2 weeks ago. "You can leave now, Ethan," Rena said, echoing Vanessa's words from that night. "You've made all the new connections you need." I laughed despite myself. "Is that your professional opinion, Detective Santos?" "That's my personal opinion, friend." She left shortly after, and I found myself alone in the condo for the first time since this all began. The silence felt different now, not empty, but peaceful, like the quiet after a storm has passed. I walked through the rooms, noting all the changes I wanted to make. New paint, different furniture, maybe some plants to bring life into the sterile space Vanessa had created. My phone rang one last time. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Ethan?" The voice was shaky, desperate. Vanessa, calling from jail. "What do you want?" "I want to explain, to apologize. What I did was wrong and I—" "Save it for the judge," I said, and hung up. I turned off my phone and poured myself another glass of champagne. Outside, the city stretched out below me like a circuit board, all lights and connections and possibilities. For the first time in years, I felt like I could see clearly. The mask had fallen away, the lies had been exposed, and the truth, cold and sharp as winter air, had set me free. Vanessa had wanted to make new connections, to climb higher in her corporate world. Instead, she'd connected herself to a federal prison sentence and a reputation that would follow her for the rest of her life. As for me, I was finally ready to start building something real, something honest, something that couldn't be destroyed by lies or betrayal or the kind of casual cruelty that had defined my marriage. The revenge was complete. The victory was cold but absolute. And for the first time in a very long time, that was enough.